All right, Ricky, cool. Let's rock. Oh my gosh, I love it. I love it. You guys are using my language. All right. Okay, gang, bring it on, everybody, as we get more people coming on. Today is a very, very important topic. And hey, all right, very nice, very nice. Okay, so today is a very, very powerful topic. Those of you who are here today, we bring a really special speaker. But I think why this topic on enabling mental health in the face of uncertainty is because many of us, if anything, and not just Malaysia, but the whole world globally, has been in a space of uncertainty. Human beings cannot be. Hey, how's it going, Nick? Kairu, Nisa. Yes, Nisa, nice to have you here. Thank you for joining us during lunch. And I think human beings are people that need to know to a certain extent, have a plan or have some level of clarity or control. But in the last year and a half and 2 years and coming, uh, human beings have been in a space of uncertainty for the longest time. And what we found is the community, whether you're a business owner, you're a leader, you're a corporate employee, um, you may have your support structures, but because of that uncertainty, it still affects our mental health. Now, how many of you understand that? Say yes. And that mental health is so important. That mental health leads into physical health, it leads to social health, it leads to emotional, spiritual health. And so it goes on, but that's something that we really need to address today. So, without further ado, let me share with you the Leadership Livewire. Why is the Leadership Livewire important, everybody? The Leadership Livewire is, and you know what's a live wire? A live wire means a wire with current, and it sparks. Now, why? This is important because live wires are about you. It's not about us. It's not about our guests. It's about you. And so we encourage you to ask as many questions as possible. Type it into the comment box and ask and shoot away anything at all, because our guest, myself as your host, is here to share. And please do us a favor, those of you who are on the show right now, can you help us tag 3 people, 3 of your friends whom you know are leaders, and they need to hear about this. They are not necessarily people that are distressed or anxious or in trouble, but they need to know how to support others. Please tag them. Hey, Agios. Hey, where are you from, Agios? Nice to have you here. Nice, nice, nice. So before I go into this, my name is Maresa Ng. I'm the founder of the Spark Group Asia, and we have been hard at work in supporting many leaders and our SME and business community to support them in where is so critical right now. And one of the most important things is mental health. And in addressing mental health, it's not just leaders stepping up for their employees and the people they care for, but it's also themselves. All right. Hey, Zul. Hey, nice to see you here. From Subang. Nice. Adios. Thank you. So today, I want to introduce to you a really amazing person. We've had him on our shows in the past, and due to popular demand, all right, we've had to have it back. So I bring to you one of the most passionate people that I've known. He's a clinical psychologist, a doctor. He's also a visiting psychologist at Hospital Selayang Pain Clinic, the head of science at Naluri Life. Now, supporting so many different communities to be well in a state of mental health and clarity. He's also the co-founder of Psycle Consultancy Psychological Services. Everybody, please join me and warm welcome everybody, Dr. Shawn.
Hello, everyone.
Hey.
A very good
Hi.
afternoon to you guys. And just call me Shawn, by the way.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Shawn. Very, very nice. Thank you. Thank you for being here.
My pleasure.
Couldn't be so happy that you could take, despite your busy schedule, take this time to really talk to us, our leadership communities. How's it going? Amish Jim Fizia is here and in the house. Guys, if you can hear Shawn loud and clear. We have Visaka. Very nice. Thank you for joining. Now, Shawn, in the space of the last year and a half, of course, hey Jim, how's it going? In the last year and a half, I think a lot of people were in some kind of honeymoon period last year, right? Honeymoon
Mhm.
because, oh, they work from home, I still have my flexibility, and people were still excited about remote working and being locked down. They're like, wow, it's how nice. I get to stay at home and work. I get to do the things I want to do. In the second half of this period, there started to be a lot of symptoms of lack of mental health. And
Mhm.
so I'm just curious, Shawn, what has been your work been about? What has been keeping you busy, and what have you started to see in the community as you support all of us? Yeah, maybe you can share.
No. Yep. So, one of the main things that this pandemic has done to us is to really orient us to think about mental health. So, in the very early phase of the pandemic, people already started engaging all these employee assistance program companies, mental health organizations to provide support to their employees. So, and when I was first asked to talk about maintaining mental health during these difficult times, right, I made a very strong, I sent a very strong message. And I think that message is valid even until today and probably even more so. So I said to everyone that you have to take this, you have to imagine that this pandemic is going to go on forever, knowing for a fact that it will end someday, but mentally you have to prepare that it's going to go on forever. And obviously, that time the message sounded reasonable, right? And people started to make some changes and so on. But the idea is that all of us are still hoping that things will change, right? So imagine this. Why do we hope that things will change? Most probably because we are unsettled with what we have right now. So let me use an example that a lot of people can relate to. When we were at school last time, right? When you were doing your primary education, you cannot wait for yourself to graduate and go into secondary school. When you're in secondary, you look forward to university. When you are in your university years, you look forward to graduation. And when you graduate, you look forward to your first job and then your second job. You know what will happen eventually? You will look forward to your own grave.
Mm,
So when I send the message that you have to imagine that this pandemic is going to go on forever, my message, my intention was to help people be ready to form some form of sustainable lifestyle, right?
mm,
And some people found it. Some people found it.
yeah,
For example, organizations, companies, those who have adapted to the pandemic, they have moved their working environment. They have changed their working environment. People have started to work from home and so on. But this kind of changes is simply not possible for some people. And the people who are not able to adjust are the ones who are suffering right now. So for me, right, the question you asked me just now was,
yeah,
what am I seeing here?
yeah.
So I am fortunate that I have a few employers, right? I work for a few organizations. So I get to see those who are really adapting well, but I also see those who are really hitting their rock bottom. So that
Right.
the question is very, very difficult for me to answer. But what I can see is that even those who are doing well, um, underlying underneath them, there's still
Yes,
some sense of uncertainty and threat and danger that is
of
really
course.
brewing
Of
underneath.
course, of course.
Mhm.
What happens to the human being when we're in this kind of prolonged state of uncertainty and helplessness? And how do we resolve? How do we? I almost think that it's not a strategy or a solution,
Mhm.
but Shawn, it's about making that peace and accepting it the way that it is.
Mm.
But I think some people still don't get to that state.
Yep.
Why is it?
Because I think that state is not some is easier said than done. Even for people who are coping well right now, are they
Mm,
really at that state? I'm not entirely sure.
sure.
Let's put it this way. You see, with or without the pandemic,
Yeah.
actually life is precious and life is vulnerable, right? But now with the
Yes.
pandemic, we are made aware of it. Um, in the past, we thought that we have a lot of control over our lives, right? We thought that we could build something. We thought that we have another maybe 30 to 40 years to live, and then within these 30 to 40 years, I want to strive for something and so on. But right now, helplessness is the right word, correct? But right now, we are forced to accept the fact that anytime, right, anyone we love may get COVID, and the people that we love may be gone. And
Right.
it is really this kind of realization that we notice that we have less control over our lives than we used to believe. But the thing is, we actually never really had that control in the first place.
We never really had.
We never
Yes.
really had that.
Yes.
Because even
Yes.
if you were healthy, you were young or whatever, you can still die at any moment. It's just that we don't really see it. So
it's
I
not
think
as near. It's not as near or as close
exactly
as we thought.
Yep.
And I think this is a really powerful conversation because I mean I've got a lot of leaders and business owners in the room. Yeah, I see Zulkifli here. I see Jahan, you know, real estate physio in physiotherapy. I see Jim, who is in the e-commerce business. I see a lot of amazing people here, and all these people, if I may, have staffs and have employees, you know, and for what it's worth, as a leader, I may be going through all these things, you know, Shawn. I may be going through all these things and this uncertainty, but there's always still this need to look poised. And I don't know to what extent it is doing the leader good, because I've got a lot of entrepreneurs here and CEOs as well. How resourceful is being that poised? Or is there another way for leaders to carry themselves, especially during this time? Because I think leaders need to address that mental health issue more than anything, because they are all trying to be strong and resilient for the people that they have. What is your advice there?
Now, our behavior is how we influence our environment, you see? So I generally explain this to people. Your thought is your relationship with yourself. Your behavior is your relationship with your environment. Let's say, right, I'm very angry at someone and I punch someone in the face. In my mind, I'm pretty sure the person wouldn't bleed, right? But if I punch the person in the face with my hands, the person may get hurt. So there are two levels here, right? So one is our relationship with ourselves. One is our relationship with other people. Now, when leaders are showing behaviors, the behaviors that they show often have some goals, right? Maybe they want to be the positive influence to other people. They want to show other people that you can do this, you are strong, or they want to demonstrate good behavior to other people. They want to become other people's role model. But obviously, internally, it may not be the same. They may actually be vulnerable as well, but they just think that it's a good idea to show other people that you have to stay strong. And I think when times change, when our generation change, the message that we have to send out to other people needs to be adjusted as well. In the past, right, maybe 60, 70 years ago, masculinity, very strong personality, you have to do things right, you have to take charge, and all these kinds of attitude and character are desirable in that kind of society. But I believe that at this point, this may not be the right message to send anymore.
Sure. You talked about a very good topic. You mentioned vulnerability, and you know, Amis Jim Physio is also talking about vulnerability is not easy to deal with. Somehow, it's even harder in the uncertainty. And I think it's a really interesting phenomenon that I read a research paper last week that corporate leaders and CEOs shy away, because if they show they are vulnerable, they are immediately evaluated for not being capable. Where is the line that we draw with vulnerability and that ability to lead? Because perhaps the cultures have forced CEOs and leaders to be, you know, no, I gotta look like, even if I don't know what I'm doing, you act like it, you know. So what is the line that we draw? And vulnerability, I think, is an important topic here. But what do you think about this?
So thinking back to the question, right? It's the culture that is shaping the leader's behavior. They have to show that they are strong even when they are feeling vulnerable. But if we ask, if we ask the question in a reverse manner, who shapes the culture? We, the people, shape the culture,
That's right.
right? So this is like saying that we, the people, have formed a culture where it is not okay to show vulnerability, right? And then we conform to that culture, and therefore we hide our vulnerability even more. So what does it take for us to counter this culture? To start another new culture. And who has to start it? Leaders have to start it.
Leaders have to start.
Yes.
And so, what is the difference between being vulnerable and being weak, or at least in a perceived weak? I'll just use the word perceived weak. What is the difference in your understanding, Shawn?
Well, vulnerable is a state, it is a matter of fact. We are just vulnerable, right? We are vulnerable to illnesses, we are vulnerable to diseases, we are vulnerable to death. Whether or not you acknowledge it, it's a fact, right? You can tell me that you are very healthy, you're young, but if you get hit by a car, you probably will still injure yourself. That's vulnerable. We are all vulnerable, whether or not you admit it or not. Weakness, on the other hand, is a concept that we use to describe people not being able to come back up after they hit rock bottom and so on. So I think there are very clear differences between these two things.
Very
Vulnerable is
clear
a fact,
differences.
but people tend to assume that vulnerable means being weak. It's not the same thing. Vulnerable is a fact, whether or not you admit it.
This is very interesting because it's the perceived culture. And I think something that's very, very interesting. Thank you, Louise Chu. Vulnerability is a fact. Very, very interesting. If I can, something that we have all seen in the recent news, and everybody, if you have seen it, please type yes. Yeah. I want to talk a little bit about the reaction of the AirAsia Thai CEO of using profanity and shutting down his employee during a meeting, and of course it was taken and misconstrued in so many shapes and forms, but that was an example of the culture. So if I can, I just want to talk a little bit about this situation. Should the people in AirAsia have been more empathetic toward this Thai, the Thai CEO? Could he have been going through his own mess, I would say? Yeah. Or is there a better way that he could have done it? I really want to hear your views on this.
I mean, obviously, I wasn't in the town hall because I'm not part of the AirAsia crew. But
Of course,
really,
of
just
course.
based on my own understanding of what I've seen on the news, I think
Yes.
people have an issue not with the fact that he did that. I think people had an issue with the fact that it was allowed. So all of us will get angry, all of us will snap, all of us will go through emotional distress, and sometimes we say the wrong things.
Right.
But most of the comments that I see is that why was this allowed? Why no one stopped him? And why people protected him after the event, after the incident? I think that was the thing that people had issue with, more about the fact that he yelled at someone with very yelled lah, right? With very probably unpolite kind of impolite kind of words.
Sure. There was I imagine that was the way he was showing some vulnerability. That was the way that he was showing that he's vulnerable. And then Tony came up and said, how easy it is to run an airline when all your planes are grounded. And so you should imagine the kind of stress on this guy. So was that a display of vulnerability? And perhaps it was actually a call for some kind of help. And and I do want to ask you, Shawn, later, what are the red flags that we can look out for when people are actually distressed, depressed, or pre-distressed, pre-depressed? Yeah, so I do want to ask you that. But I imagine, just debating this, that was how he was showing his vulnerability, but it was taken in that way. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Now, it is true that when you're in different positions, you portray your vulnerabilities differently, right?
Yes.
But I think in this particular situation, the problem is that you are in a position that will shape the culture of your entire organization. So the way you portray your vulnerability will also influence the people under you. If you think that being aggressive and being impolite and being rude is
Sure.
it's acceptable as a way to express vulnerability, you're probably setting a very bad example. And also, the fact that this was allowed is also setting a very bad example for the rest of the organization and the workplace culture.
So a very, very important point here is, yes, vulnerability is okay, is accepted, but it's how it's being shown that has ripple effects, and I really love the questions that are coming up by Azza Yasmin. Hey Azza, thank you for joining the show. I also have a question from Ellen that's coming up. Vulnerability is showing the authentic self and being brave to share concerns and worry as a leader. It means vulnerability comes from authenticity instead of putting up a front, positioning myself. That's a very good one, Azza.
So this statement is getting it right, lah, right? But there is a bit of a difference here. Vulnerability is a state that is always there, whether or not you acknowledge it, whether or not you are authentic. You are just vulnerable, right? Even if you don't admit it, you are still vulnerable. It's just that whether you acknowledge this vulnerability and how do you show it. Some people realize that they are vulnerable and therefore they make friends with other people. And therefore they build meaningful social connections so that they know when I am down, when I hit the rock bottom, I get support from other people. Some people, they know that they are vulnerable and they address it by manipulating other people. I want to make myself feel powerful. I want all these people to work under me so that when I'm vulnerable, I can have control over other people to make myself feel good. All of us are vulnerable, and most of the time, the behaviors that we do, the things that we act on, are to address our own vulnerabilities. But some of these strategies are more harmful than the others.
I really love what you're sharing here because, at the end of the day, vulnerability is a state. We are all vulnerable. It's just whether we accept it, and that's very, very, that's very important. Yeah, and the people that bounce back from the uncertainty, and the people that continue to feel stuck, are actually the people that embrace that vulnerability. Very good question here from, thank you, Azza. That's fantastic. Guys, keep the questions coming because I think these questions are amazing. Ellen has a question. How do we cultivate a culture of empathy in an organization in times of uncertainty? Oh, that's good. That's good. Before you go there, Shawn, I've always wanted a scientific understanding between pity, sympathy, empathy, and compassion. So
Compassion.
okay. So maybe you have your views. Yeah.
Now, so you'll notice that we human beings, we have the ability to relate to other people. So let's say last year, this Black Lives Matters movement, BLM movement, I'm sure a lot of you have heard of it, right?
Yes.
When we see news like this, we tend to also get emotionally affected, right? We also feel something for them. Although obviously I'm not a Black person, I'm not living in the US, but seeing a news like that would also evoke some form of emotion in me. So this is telling us that we human beings have the ability to connect to other people emotionally to some extent. And this ability is generally affected by a few things. Number one is your knowledge, your understanding of the issue. So if you have no idea what BLM is, it's raining on my side, so I hope it doesn't affect my audio quality. If it's affecting, let me know, yeah?
Yeah,
right?
So far so good. Can hear you loud and clear.
Okay, good. So the first is our understanding of the issue. If we don't know anything about the issue, obviously we won't feel anything, right?
Yeah.
The second thing is our emotional sharing. Whether you have personal experience related to it, whether you have been discriminated before, whether you have been bullied before, if you have that, you feel more strongly about a certain issue, right? And number three is our self-others distinction ability. So yes, I know that these people are hurting, but I also know that I am not them. You see? So I also know clearly that we are not the same individual. So our ability to relate to other people is like a composite of these three things: knowledge, personal experience, and our ability to distinguish ourselves with other people. So when it comes to empathy, sympathy, right, and also compassion, the differences is really between these few things. Empathy is characterized by understanding the issue and also personally experiencing the issue, right? I have personal experience in the issue and very low self-other distinction. What it means is that I feel as if I am you. That's empathy, right? You feel sad, and I have been through something very similar, so I feel very similar to what you're feeling. That's empathy.
Yep.
Sympathy means that I probably don't have personal feelings towards this, but I understand the situation well, right? So I know this is a sad situation, but I don't really feel it emotionally myself, and I have high self-other distinction. So I also know that this doesn't happen to me. This is not happening to me, but I'm just feeling bad for you. That's sympathy. Now, in the past, people thought that, sympathy is not so good. Empathy is better because sympathy means you are higher than other people, right? It's other people's misfortune. You are just sympathizing other people. You are higher, people are lower. So people thought that sympathizing other people is actually putting other people down, right? So we have always talked about developing empathy. You want to be on the same level with the other person. But what I need to clarify is that there's no inherent right or wrong about empathy and sympathy. It's just a natural reaction. You don't choose to sympathize people. You don't choose to empathize people. You just feel it naturally. You just have to notice which kind of feelings that you are feeling. That's the main thing. Sometimes towards certain people, certain incident, I feel empathy. Sometimes I feel sympathy, and that's fine. But what we want to go a step further with sympathy is that we want to develop our sympathy into compassion. So what's the difference between compassion and all these things? Compassion is actually very similar to sympathy. Okay, it's very similar to sympathy, but with one additional component. It gives you the urge to take action, to address other people's suffering, to relieve other people's suffering. So other than just feeling sympathetic, you want to do something to help relieve suffering in that person. That's compassion. So I can give you some clear examples on my personal examples of how I differentiate between these three things. Right. So I lost my dad last year. So when someone comes to me saying that, I lost someone that I love to COVID, to whatever, I feel empathetic because I went through that.
Got it.
Okay. When I see stray dogs on the street, I feel sympathetic. I feel sad for them, but it doesn't make me do anything for them particularly. I adopted a stray dog. Yes, that's actually the most I did, right? But I don't go out and feed them on a daily basis. I don't donate monthly on a regular basis. I feel sympathetic, but there's no action on my part.
Right.
I feel compassionate for members of the LGBTQ community. I am not LGBTQ myself, but I see their suffering, I hear their suffering, and it pushes me to do something for them. So what I do with my training and my trainees and my training center is that I make sure that all students under me have to go through training to help them explore the suffering that LGBTQ people are experiencing. Because as future clinicians, when these people come to us, if we don't know about their suffering, we may be hurting them.
Wow. Right. So, this is fantastic. This is fantastic because you define sympathy, empathy, and compassion. Sympathy is almost an understanding, a knowledge of it. Empathy is being able to feel what people feel, stepping into their shoes, literally stepping into the shoe and saying, okay, I can feel it. Compassion is the urge to relieve someone of the suffering. That means it's to take action lah. Okay. So okay, go ahead.
So coming back to this question, how do we cultivate a culture of empathy in organization in time of uncertainty? We now understand that empathy requires you to have high emotional sharing. So the best way to cultivate empathy is to explore your own emotions, is to acknowledge your own emotions, because all of us have it. The people that you love, the people that you don't love, the people that you hate, and the people that you pretend to care, but you don't really care, right? All of us have emotion. So if you can be in touch of your emotion and you acknowledge your own emotional pain, and you just go a step further and realize that this person that I'm dealing with, he or she may also have emotions, he or she may also be going through pain, it will help you develop empathy better.
And would it also be fair to say that it's so hard to practice empathy and EQ? If someone's EQ is low, so it's hard to practice empathy if I don't recognize my own emotions.
Yes, correct. Because you cannot share what you don't have.
That is fantastic. And what do you see a lot of in the corporate culture? I'm just getting into Ellen's cultivating a culture of empathy. Would it also mean that a lot of corporate leaders need to understand themselves?
Yes, they have to understand themselves, and also, in a way, they have to be willing and open enough to open up with on their vulnerabilities. Because
Wow.
what they do will set examples for the people who are following them.
Wow.
So if they tell people that it's okay for you to share your vulnerabilities, the people
Yes.
under them will see that and they will be more willing to. Imagine if your
Yes.
boss will only show you his strong side, right? You have to always be good and so on. Although verbally he tells you it's okay for us to make mistakes, it's okay for us to make mistakes, but he never makes any mistakes and he never allows himself to make any mistake. Can you really be feel that he's genuine about this? So
Yeah.
sometimes being a teacher, being a leader means you want to intentionally make some mistakes to show other people, to let them know that it
Wow.
is okay to make mistakes.
Wow. Wow. That is fantastic. Oh my gosh, guys. This is mind blowing. A lot of Louise, cultivate the empathy in the culture of organization. Shidi, yes, absolutely. Empathy is to step into the feelings of others, to step into their shoes. And yes, Louise, open up our vulnerability. I think every so often as as leaders, corporate leaders or business leaders, we are often not opening up to look at our own mistakes, our own inabilities, and always trying to be positioned and poised to know what to do, and that affects our mental health as well. Yeah, so I think this is a very, very powerful conversation. Ricky's got a very, very good question here. Ricky's question: Dr. Shawn, can you share your experience of the organizations that have hit ground zero and the managements are going through stress? Ricky, almost most companies, yeah, almost most companies. But what are the steps to de-stress, to stay calm and get through this pandemic? Thanks, Ricky.
This is such a big question that without some background, I don't know how to answer.
Go
But
ahead, give it background.
I will probably answer it from this perspective. It really depends on what kind of organization that you're running.
Yeah.
And the next question is people your main asset in the company? Because it is true that some companies don't really need a lot of people. Like,
Yeah.
for example, for my kind of industry, right?
Yeah.
I actually just make sure that I take care of myself well, because when people come to me, they come to see me only. I don't really have to manage other people, right? Because managing other people, when I train other clinicians, it doesn't mean that I have power over them. They are still doing their own tasks. But there are some companies that really rely very heavily on their people being united, their people's well-being being okay. And I believe that for most companies, that's the case, right? So if you realize that people is your main asset, is the kind of thing that is the main thing that will keep your company going.
Yeah.
I think the obvious answer is to really pay attention to your people. But I want to clarify on this, right? Taking care of your people is not simply just engaging an EAP company, right? It's not simply just telling your staff that, oh, we have engaged this particular company, and then if you have issues, just go to them. Oh, my staff are stressed, right? Let's call Dr. Shawn in and give a webinar. It's not like that.
It's like it's outsourcing it, isn't it? You're like
Exactly.
outsourcing. It's like, oh, go deal with that. I don't want to deal with that. When actually, it's the people themselves that need to deal with it, not outsource it.
Exactly.
Wow.
So
That's fantastic.
again, it really depends on what kind of organization that you are running. It's very difficult for me to give an overgeneralized answer to this.
And so, echoing Ricky's question, so as leaders, all of us know that we all need some kind of help. And I think a lot of leaders are in this space, Shawn, where maybe they want to be compassionate for others. I want to be compassionate. I want to empathize with others. But they say, hey, I'm also in my own pot of hot water, yeah. So I'm also in the same situation. How can I empathize and create the empathy of culture when I'm struggling myself?
So then my
What
question
do you
will
think?
be, then are you reaching out for help?
Okay, and then we go
Right?
back to vulnerability.
Yes, correct. So if you're reaching out for help, you're in this hot water and you're reaching out for help and you get better over time, you're also demonstrating to other people that it is okay to be vulnerable and it is okay to reach out for help and you can get better. So if you have gone through that yourself, you become a better role model. You will be in a better position to encourage other people to reach out for help as well.
Yes. That's fantastic. And so, topping off this, I think we've got some really good questions coming in. Azar, thank you for recapping. That's fantastic. Everybody, thank Azar for recapping that awesome bit by Shawn just now. But
Mhm,
before I get to Leon's question, the question that I have for, if let's just say I'm trying to practice some compassion, I do
mhm,
want to support someone.
mhm,
What are the red flags? And the challenger, and I think Shawn, this is the thing that we find is that when people are depressed,
mhm,
or clinically, that means they are diagnosed, then everybody
mhm,
goes like, oh my gosh. And I've gone into several companies, management teams are where people have been clinically diagnosed with depression
mhm.
throughout this period of time. But it's only when they get to that point, everybody just goes, hey, you okay? Are you? But I believe that it is a sequence of things
Mhm.
and there are some signals. Can you teach us what those signals are and what we can do to support each other?
So I can spend about 5 to 10 minutes listing down to you all the
Big
signs and
topic.
signals. Yep.
Okay.
But I have learned that it's probably not the most efficient way
Okay.
to show care and to basically support other people. Because what I've learned is that people can hide their pain if they choose to. You
Hide their
can
pain.
never truly know when someone is in pain or not. Someone can be laughing and smiling in front of you, but inside them they are hurting.
Yeah.
So then it becomes a bit meaningless for us to learn how to just detect, right? Because
Okay.
sometimes when people are already showing the signs, right, it's very obvious. You don't really need a professional to tell you that crying it's a sign of being emotional, whether or not it's
Yep.
crying because of happiness or sadness. You don't really need a professional to tell you that when someone is really yelling and slamming the door or whatever, they are probably getting a bit aggressive and angry. Those
Yep.
are very clear signs. We are all human beings. We can relate to that.
Yeah.
Instead, what I think will really, really help
Yeah.
the entire society and basically the culture as a whole is to really encourage people to reach out, encourage people to open up.
To reach out.
So help people to understand that it is okay for you to tell people that you are in pain. And we
Yeah.
can only do that by modeling the behavior. We start to do it ourselves first. We start to let
Mm.
people know that we are vulnerable. Make
Mm.
opening up vulnerability a norm.
Yeah.
Don't make it something that you have to make a huge decision like, okay, should I tell people that I'm in pain? If I tell people that I'm in pain, I may lose my job, people may judge me, and so on. There are so much of these worries, and therefore people are not reaching out, you see. But if people
Mm.
just say, let's say, if you tell people that, oh, I had a fever yesterday, will you find it difficult to tell someone this? Probably not.
No. No.
I have a bit of cough, right? You can say this very easily and very casually.
Yeah.
But can you casually admit to people that I'm in a lot of emotional pain? You will notice
Yes.
that you will be a bit reserved. I
You'll
hope
be
one
reserved.
day,
Mm.
our society can be fair to
Mm.
our mental and emotional health.
Mm.
If we
That
can
that is
admit,
fantastic.
that's the main thing that I think can help the entire society. Just be fair to
Wow.
ourselves.
Be fair and to reach out, and
Mhm,
when people are reaching out to us, we are also open to understand their situation instead of
exactly.
judging, to
Yep.
judge and to evaluate. Hey, how come you like that? You are so strong, you are the top CEO, why you like that? We need to exercise the acceptance and to
Mhm,
remove judgment when
mm,
people open up to us.
yep.
That's fantastic. Jim, it's okay to be vulnerable, to reach for help so others will follow and reach out. We are the role
Yes.
model. Thank you so much, Jim. That's fantastic. Alan, I believe that it's also about trust in a relationship, and it's very hard to open up
Yep.
if there's no trust, because I don't feel safe doing so, that there is such a thing as psychological safety.
Yep.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Ellen. Guys, are you enjoying the conversation so far? Say yeah. If you are, oh my gosh, we want to invite you to bring on more questions for Dr. Shawn. I think if anything, I am enjoying the conversation. I'm learning so much from this conversation, Shawn. It's unbelievable. So, guys, if you're enjoying this, look, bring on the questions. I think we have a few questions coming up, gang. So please let us know what you want to know from Shawn in how you're supporting your organization. Whether it is you're doing it as an employee, or you're doing it as a corporate leader, you run a department, or you work from home on your own, you're freelancing. What are some of these things that you'll be able to need? Anne Marie, hey Anne, I didn't know you're on the call. Thank you. Very enlightening. I totally agree as well. All right. This is fantastic. Let's bring it on. More and more and more to come. So, if I can, we talked a lot about identifying the red flags. Yeah, and you are absolutely right, Shawn. Um, People can show us whatever they want to show us. And so if I'm trying to be compassionate, I can't keep going and asking, hey, you okay? Are you okay? Are you okay? Because they'll say, hey, yeah, I'm okay. They can show me whatever they want to show, right? So more important is that people learn to reach out. That means they have to first start and say, hey, I need some help here. So if I can, for the person that might be in mental distress, what does it feel like? So if let's just say I want to reach out for help, I say, no lah, I feel a bit sad, but I guess, yeah lah, I'm at home, But how do I identify if it actually, time to reach out, What do I need to start seeing? Yeah. I think that's something we are not in touch with, Shawn.
Yep. So you see, I want to just highlight something that Alan mentioned just now.
Yes.
It's about trust in a relationship, right? You'll notice that when you are feeling vulnerable, when you feel like you want to reach out to someone, there will be some people in your mind that will naturally pop out, and these are the people that you want to reach out to. And there will be some people that you will tell yourself that no matter what, I'm not going to talk to these kind of people.
Yeah.
Right. So this is telling us that we naturally choose who we confide into. We naturally choose who we want to open up to, right?
Yeah.
And for someone who is going through emotional distress, if you notice that there's no one in your mind, I really cannot think of anyone that I can open up to. You just imagine yourself being in that situation. You are drowning, and you notice that there's nothing that you can hang on to.
There's no one person.
There's no one person. How does that feel like?
Oh my gosh, I feel like,
a lot of us probably are lucky enough that we at least have that one person, right?
Yeah.
We at least have one. But for those who don't have, and we probably don't even know that they exist because you don't know them enough so that they don't think about you, you also don't think about them. So what I'm saying is that there are a lot of people who are drowning, and people don't even realize that they're drowning because we don't know them, they don't know us, they won't come to us. And the reason why we psychologists, right, we are paid strangers. We are strangers paid to be your friends. Why do we have a job? You see, it's because there are a lot of people drowning out there, but they have no one to hang on to. And all they can do is to pay money to reach out to a stranger. Hopefully you can help me.
Wow. That is fantastic, because I think you zeroed it down to, if I am in trouble and I cannot think of one person that I want to open up all and entirely, fully and completely and authentically with, I can't think of that one name, that is distress. I think that is so beautiful, because I think a lot of people are in that space, which is also why, Shawn, and later please talk a little bit about your services to support the community. I think that's very, very important. And my heart goes out to all the hard work that you do. So please, guys, if you want to know this, stay till the end. But I also want to say, this is the reason why, as leaders in the communities, and all my leaders that are in this call right now, we play that role for each other. How many of you know what I mean? We are playing that role to reach out to each other. So don't feel like, wow, she look like she's doing very well on her e-commerce, on her business, her Facebook Live. She looks okay. Never mind. But it's also an opportunity for us to reach out to one another and to support each other during these difficult times. And if not, we do need to work with professionals like you, Shawn, to support us, because otherwise it just feels quite alone. And if I can, the remote working environment, does not help. Doesn't help. And so I just go back to Leon's question. Leon asked a really good question here. Speaking of stress, the pandemic has made people more stressed, and I noticed that colleagues are being affected badly. Is it because work from home isolates people that stress builds up easily? It's a very
That
good
is
question.
definitely one of the reasons. You see,
Okay.
I think I've mentioned this just now, right? That all of us are
Yeah.
vulnerable, but we don't
Yeah.
usually realize it. And the way
Yeah.
we distract ourselves from facing our vulnerability by making this world a beautiful place, right? We have theme parks, we have restaurants, we have bar clubs, and all these entertainment facilities to help us distract ourselves from the vulnerability that
Yeah.
we inherently just are, right?
Yeah.
But now, when we are working from home, when we are all under lockdown, you are forced to face it. You can no
Yeah.
longer distract yourself. What's the best? What's the most you can do at home? Play games, right? You may have a
Yeah.
bit of beer. We know that. I mean, during the pandemic, the sales of beer skyrocketed, right? People
Skyrocket.
bought. I mean, now I'm not sure whether people still can afford beer, but I'm pretty sure if they can, they will probably still do it, right? So
That
we are
first before
always.
the makanan. That first before the meal.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly. So being able to go out to engage the external world helps us distract ourselves from our vulnerability. So
Yeah.
working from home definitely forces us to face that, which gives rise to stress. So if you really
Mm.
ask me, right, what is
Yeah.
really the ultimate solution to this
Yeah.
entire thing, to stress, to
Yeah.
all this pent up emotion,
Yeah.
is to learn to be at peace with yourself, even
Mm.
when even when you are unable to engage the external world. Find that internal
Mm.
peace. Don't
Mm.
let your external experiences define your well-being. Being able to
That
find
is very
peace
powerful.
despite the chaos in the world.
And what is that process of finding peace? I believe one of it is acceptance. Just
Yep.
okay, this is where I'm at, you know. Uh, but what is that process of finding peace for you? What are some strategies, you know? And guys, if you have some of those strategies, please pop it into the chat box. Tell us how you develop or find or accept that peace in
Mm.
your life right now, especially when we're all working from home. So Shawn, what's yours?
I went through a self-exploration process to
Okay.
understand how I define myself. So I can
Right.
I can guide you guys through this process. It probably will take a few minutes, right?
Oh, love
So
it,
I
love it.
noticed that I define my existence. I know that I exist because I can have an impact on my environment. I can see what is in front of me. I can feel my aircon. I can feel everything in my environment. So I know I exist, right? And of course, when I see things that I like, I feel happy. When I see things that I don't like, I feel unhappy. So I know my experiences is partly defined by what I see and what I experience, right?
External.
But let's say if I can no longer see, because one day that may happen, people get old, right? We get our eyes may get bad, right? So let's say one day I can't see, I can no longer see. How do I know I exist? What would define my personal experiences? Probably how I feel in my body, right? How what I can hear in my environment, my touch, my so on. Whether I'm lying on a comfortable bed, right? So I can only rely on my touch, my hearing to define my existence. Now let's say I am old and my body is aching all over, or maybe I'm paralyzed. I don't feel anything in my body anymore,
Yeah.
right? I can no longer feel my body. How
Yeah.
do I know I exist?
Mm.
Probably through my hearing, right? I can hear people talking around me. When I hear things that I like, I hear music, I'm happy. But when I hear people arguing, I'm sad. So at that moment, I'll be defined by sound.
Yeah.
But let's say if I can no longer hear,
Okay.
how do I define my existence? Probably it's my thought. Therefore, we have this, I think, therefore I am, Rene Descartes, remember? Right?
Therefore
So
I am. Yes.
yes, I think therefore I am. So if my thought quality is positive, is happy, then I'll be happy, right? If my thought
Mm.
quality is negative, then I'll be angry, then I'll be sad, right? But let's say I can no longer engage my thinking. I can no longer think. I can no longer have control over what I think. How do I know I exist? I don't know, right? Do I even exist? So some people answer is no, some people answer is yes, right? I've come
Yeah.
to the conclusion that the answer is yes. Even
Yeah.
when you can no longer feel, hear, see, think, or whatever, you still exist. Because part of your existence is defined by other people. I may not be aware of myself anymore, but if someone still know Shawn, right? Someone can still see Shawn, from another angle, Shawn still exists. So part of our existence is also defined by other people's acknowledgement. Yeah.
Right.
Which is
Right.
also why if someone you love passed away, they still exist because you still know that they exist. Even if they cannot experience themselves anymore, they still exist. And removing all this layer, if we remove senses, experience, other people's
All the
perception, and all these
senses.
things, yep.
Yep.
What are we?
Mm.
You will notice that
Wow.
you cannot describe it. You are
Cannot.
still there. Yep. It's a
Yes.
form of experience. It's a form of internal peace and emptiness, but you cannot
Yes.
describe it because as soon as you describe it, right, it is already something else. It is
You're
already
giving it life.
yes, you
Yeah.
are giving it life. So that
Right.
is how I find my inner peace. I notice that I am not defined by any of these things.
Fantastic, fantastic. And when we find that inner peace, that internal peace, thank you so much, Shidi. We almost don't define ourselves based on how people look at us, what people do to us, what goes on around that I have to react to give myself that happiness by eating certain things or engaging in my favorite activities to create that peace and joy. It almost, if I can, Shawn, it just sounds like it's just a choice,
Yeah.
regardless of the environment. It's just a choice.
Yep.
That is actually just very, very insightful. How many of you found that? Oh my gosh, Shidi found it as a BFO, a big like aha moment. And I
And if
think
you think
on
about
a
this, right,
yeah,
when we talk about self-care, mental health, and
yes,
so on, all this
yes,
while the messages that you can see on the internet are
yes,
strategies to help you change the things that you experience. Go exercise, right? Endorphin,
yes,
change the way your body feels.
external,
Listen to music, change the messages, the music, the sound that you are getting, right?
yes,
Have conversation and so on. They are
yes,
trying to change the way you experience the environment. But what I'm saying now is that at this particular moment, we don't have a lot of options in what kind of experiences we can change. If we
yep,
are sad, we cannot just reach out to we cannot just go find a friend and chit chat and drink, right? Because it's
mm,
not possible anymore. So
mm,
the fact that the world is crumbling means that we really have to be able to find peace with the least effort, with the least activity, which is to find the
that's right.
internal peace.
Mm, that is fantastic because I love what Fizia is sharing here with exercising a lot. Anne Marie is talking about journaling that helps to be more aware of our thoughts and what's going on around us. Yeah, our thinking,
Yep.
feeling, saying, doing, our four central powers.
Mm-hmm.
But I think this is something that I'm taking away from all your sharing. Very insightful, Shawn. It's almost all these external stimulation, whether it's exercise or eating healthily or listening to good music, etc. It's sometimes short term, it's not sustainable.
Mm-hmm.
And the inner peace that we find is more sustainable. It gives us that long lasting ability to be peaceful where we are at, instead
Yep.
of having to keep doing the external stimulants. Although I don't discount those things are important
Yeah.
lah, go
And
out
I
into
still
the
do all those things.
sun,
Yeah, I still
yeah, do the
exercise on a daily
gardening.
basis. I do all these things, but it's
Yeah,
just that
yeah,
in
yeah,
the
go
end of the
ahead.
day, imagine, right, if you are in your deathbed, you are
Yeah,
really really old. Imagine what
yes,
kind of condition you will be in. You're probably
yeah,
vulnerable.
yeah,
You probably cannot move your body too much. You probably are too weak to speak. You're probably too weak to swallow. At that
wow,
particular moment, the only thing that is left with you is the quality of your mind and the quality of your
quality.
consciousness. Yes, I am very fit now, right? I do weightlifting on a daily basis, right? I
Yeah,
exercise. I go to the gym 4 times a week. I have a home gym, right? I build a
yes,
gym at home, so I do exercise on a very regular basis. But I know eventually, when I get old, I will lose all
wow,
of this. And
wow,
if let's assume that the experience that you feel at the moment of death is eternity. So when you die, if you die peacefully, you'll be eternally peaceful. And if you die unpeacefully, you'll be eternally unpeaceful. Your feeling, your experience at the moment of death becomes the most important thing. And we have a lifetime for us to prepare ourselves for the moment of death. So
wow.
start developing the quality of your consciousness, of your mind right now.
That is in so much the practice of mindfulness, actually,
Yep.
Shawn. It's a practice of mindfulness and why people meditate. Um,
Yep.
do you practice meditation?
Yes, every day.
Okay, Shawn, I need to bring you back for another session on meditation. Can I
Okay.
can I do that? Because it's the
Sure.
practice of mindfulness. I think if I can, and guys, please jump in as we get to the end of the show. Please ask your questions to Dr. Shawn if you want to know more. But I'll talk a little bit about the very busy lifestyles that
Mm.
human beings have. Don't just talk about leaderships and
Yep.
it's just humans just busy themselves, and when we are at home, we still find ways to be busy, and
Yep.
that busyness are the reactions. We're constantly reacting to what's next, the stimulants, the email, the proposal, the music, the webinar. There's so much of stimulants that we don't get to be in touch with how we think, how we feel. It's almost so external, it's driven externally,
Yep.
that we don't get to really know who we are in the whole process.
Mm.
So I really love what you shared. And for those of you who want Dr. Shawn to come back and talk a little bit about mindfulness and meditation, please say yes, and then Shawn, we can get you to come back. um,
Sure.
Shidi, quality of consciousness, is it mean I need to be aware of what is happening and to accept it?
That is part of it. And
Uh,
also, it is the ability to shift your consciousness to wherever you need it to be.
mm,
So, for example, let's think about depression. When someone is depressed, they don't have the ability to shift their consciousness to something else. They're always thinking about very helpful stuff. They're experiencing pain and all this helplessness and hopelessness, the suffering.
yes.
If you
Yes.
have the ability to shift your consciousness and your mind, you'll be able to focus on things that are probably more bearable in life. It's just like what we are going through right now, right? People with better quality of consciousness, they will be able to focus on certain things that will keep them going. Whereas people who are cornered and they have no way out, they're probably likely to get depressed and very, very suicidal. So the quality of
Mm,
your consciousness defines not only your mental health, it also defines your your existence in
yeah.
general.
Yeah. And when we're aware of that quality of consciousness, I almost just imagine is knowing that we have a choice. We have a choice to feel in a certain way, we have a choice to say certain things, a choice to behave, versus like you said, when people feel cornered, no choice. What people do that to me? No
Mhm.
choice, ma. My employees like that. No choice, ma. COVID-19. When we become like that, then we become so unproductive and unresourceful that we can lash out, as we have seen celebrity CEOs sometimes lash
Exactly.
out. That's their way of showing the vulnerability, but it's not acceptable. Thank you,
Yep.
Jim. Switching your state of mind, it is all just a choice. Shifting the consciousness. Thank you, Louise. Wow, Shauna. So many
Mhm.
people say yes, war. Okay, we
Okay.
we will come back. Okay, yeah. Okay, thank you. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we've come to the end of the show. I'm sure some of you have more questions for Dr. Shawn, and I want to share with you, everybody. Uh, Dr. Shawn is running a very, to me, it's a very, it's a community service, and I think this community service is very, very important. Shawn actually has support services for people that are in financial difficulty, to reach out to anyone in his team. Yeah, so his team of psychotherapists are ready to work with anybody who needs to reach out and have someone understand their situation. Yeah, so to me, I think, Shawn, this service is very, very important. We're going to share your Facebook page very soon, but leaders and community on this show, please share this show, share this live stream. It'll be recorded and you can share it. But also, please share Shawn's contact on Facebook, Cycle Consultancy. Please share that with as many people as possible on your Facebook, because where people need that support, I believe they need to talk to some a professional that cares. Yeah, and I think why I love working with Shawn. You're very different from a lot of the other professionals, where sometimes it's just just getting the job done. But Shawn, I've always noticed your passion, your joy in doing this. And that always, you've come onto the show to educate so many of us. I think we are just so thankful. And that to me cuts you apart from just all the other professionals that I come across. So I can see the calmness from Dr. Shawn's face. Thank you for sharing. All right. So guys, the
My
Facebook
pleasure.
links are over here. Please share it out. Yes. Now, Shawn, any last advice for all of us, leaders and communities supporting and being supported by one another? What are some of your last words for us?
Actually, I intended to use that inner peace message as my last parting words,
Oh,
but
wow.
since I've already said that, right? So I probably want to elaborate on it a bit more.
Yeah.
Some of us are more advantageous. Some of us are in a better position, right?
Yeah.
So I think leaders are generally in a better position, and they have more options and outlet to express their own vulnerabilities. And some of them use it in a good way, some of them use it in a bad way. Some of them would actually lash out on other people when they are vulnerable themselves. Some of them will help other people achieve higher heights. My belief is always that whatever we do, we have to come from the right place in the heart. The intention is more important than the behavior. Some people will show that, oh, I'm doing all these things, I'm supportive, I'm engaging EAP companies, right? I am asking Dr. Shawn to give talks and so on to tell people that, you see, I care, I engage professionals to support my employees. But in the end of the day, the intention is really to just tell people that I'm doing something. Whereas there are people with really, really good intention, they may be doing the wrong stuff. But I generally respect people with good intention, but maybe accidentally doing the wrong stuff, than people with the wrong intention, but showing that they're doing good stuff. So start with the heart first.
That's fantastic. That's such very, very good advice, is to start with the heart. And I think during this time and age, it is it is not fathomable anymore logically what we are all going through, and that the emotion, the heart is at stake. So we need to start by reaching out to others and connecting with heart. So that is fantastic. Oh my gosh, that is your wisdom. So everybody, I just want to say we've come to the end of the show. If you guys had a very, very good you enjoyed today's sharing, please share it inside the chat now. What is your biggest takeaway? What did you learn from Dr. Shawn today, as we have started at the beginning of lunch until now? What is your biggest takeaway? And please, again, do not forget to share this live stream. If you're on Facebook or you're on LinkedIn, please, by all means. And for any of you that have more questions, please reach out to Dr. Shawn. Yes, what is your biggest takeaway? Please share, type it in, gang. Yeah, so that Shawn and myself can see what has been your biggest takeaway. We do want to see Shawn again. So please stay tuned on our Facebook and our LinkedIn pages so that we can invite Dr. Shawn again. And if I may, please ask questions to Shawn and reach out to his team if you are ever in need of this support. Now, if I can, just my some of my last words, and if I can, Shawn, I think sometimes as leaders and as entrepreneurs and as CEOs, there is a need to always be so upright, and it's okay to not be okay. As you shared, it's okay to not be okay, and we need to be authentic and vulnerable with the people around us. I think that's very, very important. Even just reaching out to you to get a check-in with the way they are thinking and feeling, I think that is important. Versus if they reach out to a psychotherapist, some people think that, hey, I think there's something wrong with me. That I think is not the right way to think and feel. It should be a space where I need to talk through these experiences with someone, versus have the preset thinking that something wrong with me, that's why I need to do this. Does that make sense? For me, I think that's not the right positioning, but just
Yep.
having someone to have a conversation with.
Correct. So someone actually asked me a very related question yesterday. So
Yes.
the person asked me, what is it that we can do to help make the society a better place, to help people to reach out? So I told the
Yes.
person that the way we can help vulnerable people and people who are suffering to reach out is for healthy people to reach out first, is to
Ah,
make help-seeking behavior a norm. So imagine, right, in the
yes.
past, lifestyle modification, living a good lifestyle, is only for people who are sick, right? Oh, because I now have diabetes, I have to avoid sugary food. Okay, and now I have diabetes, then I have to stop doing things that I used to enjoy. So changing our lifestyle is a response to you being sick. If healthy people, we don't care, we just drink and eat whenever we like, right? But nowadays you see a paradigm shift in this. Healthy
Yes.
people, even before they fall sick, they are already very health conscious. They go to the
Okay.
gym, they change their lifestyle and so on.
Yes.
So, and in the past, people who are very unfit, who are very obese, when they go to the gym, they feel very, very shy. Because why? Only people who are like with six packs or very, very fit would go to the gym. So when they go to the gym and they see all these very intimidating bodies, they
Yeah.
will shy and then they will go away. But
Yeah.
nowadays, you don't see that anymore. You see people of all sizes and all colors at the gym. And people
Yes.
accept that all of us have to start somewhere. We
Yes.
have achieved this, right? When it comes to healthcare, when it comes to gym going and lifestyle and so on. I think we
Mm.
can do the same for mental health as well. If all of us,
Mm.
healthy people, also reach out for psychological services,
Yes.
people who are vulnerable will be more willing and more open to it because they know that everyone is going. When I go to a psychologist, it doesn't mean that I'm sick. It's just like when I go to the gym now, it's just because I've made a decision to change my lifestyle. It doesn't mean that I have diabetes. I think that is
Yes.
how we can change people's perception
Mm.
about mental health services.
Mm. Wow. Wow, that is fantastic. Thank you. Thank you. Oh, one last question from Zelda. What do we do if people reach out to us? Last
Okay.
question, Zelda.
So this is a question that I can use 1 hour to answer, right? But I will summarize it in a few minutes because it is true.
Okay.
I actually do run some form of mental health advocacy training to help people
Yes.
become mental health supporters.
Who
Yep,
can we
lend your
join?
ears.
Can we join?
I mean, I'm happy to give you guys one.
Oh,
Uh,
that's good. That's good. Thank you.
so the idea is when people reach out to us, um, the idea is that they probably want some form of assurance. They want someone to hear them. They want someone to just stay with them. And there are generally two things we can remind ourselves of when someone comes to us. Number one is, are we able to provide the knowledge and information to help the person feel better? And number two is, do we personally have the experience to help the person feel better? So the first, knowledge and information. So for example, if someone comes to you saying that they are depressed or whatever, do you know where to guide the person to? So if you have some form of contact like with vendors or Cycle Consultancy, you can pass this kind of contact to them if they are suffering, right? The second thing, so this is quite easily done. You just need to look out for these kind of resources and then direct them to one of these kind of services. That would be fine. The second thing is your personal experience. Have you personally gone through this? If the person is reaching out to you for something that you have really, really no idea of, don't just simply comment, right? Because you won't know. And if it's something that you have experienced before, you
Yeah.
also have to be aware that your personal experience may not always be applicable to the person, but at least now you have some idea of what the person is going through. And you can try to maybe just open to the person that I actually have been through something like that. You also share with the person your personal experience. You see whether the person can relate to it or not. If the person says, no, I don't think whatever you're going through is the same as mine, then you just direct the person to the psychological services or whatever befrienders to seek for professional support. But if so happen your experience resonate with the person, you may have found yourself your new BFF.
Oh, that is wonderful. That is one, and that you can relate on a similar frequency. And
Mm-hmm.
what I love about the two things that you shared just now, Dr. Shawn, with number one, we have the knowledge and the information, the resources to support. Number two, thank you, Zelda, for the great question, the experience. And if we don't, actually, the two things here is just listening. As
Exactly.
Visaka Chu just shared, lend your ears. It's just really the act of listening
Yeah.
Whether we actually get to support, do anything for the person,
Yep.
both of these two activities here is just listening. That's already great enough of a support.
Exactly.
And if intervention is actually necessary, then of course there needs to be professional help. Yeah,
Yep.
which I
Yeah.
echo what you shared. Professional help is not let's go and get the help when we are, we're already in that space. But it needs to be something where we go from good to great. We get stronger. We shouldn't go only like I want to go to the gym only when I got diabetes.
Mhm.
That should not be the way to treat our mental health.
Exactly.
Yeah. Wow. Oh my gosh, we could go on for another hour, but I know everybody will be very happy if we go on for another hour. But I need to let them get some lunch and let you get some lunch as well, Shawn. So, everybody, join me to say thank you to Dr. Shawn, who has taken the hour with us. Please reach out to him through his Facebook, add him on Cycle Consultancy, his Facebook page, and please share because I think what we have learned today is just so useful from so many shapes and forms. And one thing that I want to say, Shawn, is that um, all these need to care for self is probably has already been around pre-pandemic. It's probably been
Yep.
around. It's just that with the pandemic, it intensified the gap of how we need to find that inner peace. It's just intensified. Actually, there's no going out, there's no stimulants. I have to find it somewhere inside, and it's just being more clear now.
Mm.
And
Yep.
you nailed it. And for me, I want to invite you for the next show, so that we can talk about it because I think it's ever so important now more than it has ever been. So thank you very much,
My pleasure. Thank you
Shawn.
for having me.
Thank you for being here. We're very thankful that you could spend time with the Spark Group Asia to really talk to our leaders and our business owners. But everybody is saying thank you. Oh my gosh, thank you. Great sharing. Louise, thank you. Fizia, Anne-Marie, thank you very much. Dr. Shawn, thank you. Ricky, Dewi, nice to see you here. Ellen, thank you. Thank you so much, Zul. Everybody is very thankful. So thank you very much for your time and your effort. And we hope to see
Thank
you
you very
again
much.
on the show,
Yep.
Dr. Shawn.
I look forward to it.
Thank you. All right.
Thank
Take
you.
care. Bye, everybody.
Take care, everyone.
Stay safe and stay well. Love you guys. Thank you. Hi, Polly. Thank you. Oh, gosh. So sweet. Okay. We'll hang back for a bit, Shawn.
Sure.
All right. Thank you. Bye, guys.